we've talked mostly about literary representations of this god, but he was depicted in art as well, although not very much for kind of the same reasons that we've been covering. People didn't really want to represent him, but when he was represented, this is what he looked like. So he's usually depicted with a chariot of some kind, a 4-horse chariot most often. He holds this like 2-pronged pitchfork kind of a thing called a bident. He's usually wearing a helmet. Sometimes he's represented holding a cornucopia, maybe because of his connection to abundance, probably because of his connection to abundance. Now, there was cult activity for Hades outside of the mystery cults, but it was kind of sparse. There are not a lot of temples to him. So here's a map of some of the known temples and sanctuaries that were dedicated to him. So the first is something called the Necromonteon, which, if you parse it out, is roughly translated to the Oracle of the Dead. And this is a place where you can go and consult spirits of the dead. So Odysseus goes here in the Odyssey to consult the ghost of Tiresias. We've talked about this before. There was probably a real-life sanctuary dedicated to Hades / Pluto / the souls of the ancestors. It's debated about where this was actually located, but the going theory is that it's the sanctuary that has been found at Epirus, so you can see it on the map. So this is one temple where Hades would have been propitiated, most likely. And other sites dedicated to him are usually called by the term Plutonion. So the most famous ones are the Plutonion at Eleusis. Now this is connected to the Eleusinian Mysteries, so this would have been a very, very, very active site, unlike some of the other ones. There's also one mentioned by the geographer Strabo. It's on a hill between Tralles and Nysa, and it would have been kind of like a healing shrine, a dream oracle shrine, and there was a cave connected to it called the Charonion, which was dedicated to the ferryman of the underworld, where, like, if you're a soul that's trying to cross into the afterlife, you have to go through him. So those all were connected at this site that's mentioned by Strabo. There's another one that Strabo mentions at Hierapolis. It's called Pluto's Gate. Now, the reason that this one is associated with Pluto is because at that place, the Earth emits, like, toxic gas into the air. And that's the same with Avernus in Italy. There's a theory that the place is called Avernus because there are no birds there, because they don't fly over it, because it's emitting all of these toxic gases. Or if birds do fly over it, they die. So it comes to be associated with the underworld and Hades and Pluto. And then the last one is a place in Turkey, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. It's called Akaraka. And this also had healing cult activity as well. So there's kind of an interesting connection between the god of the dead and, like, healing activity. I'm not really sure exactly what that's about. This is, like, kind of newer information to me. I haven't really processed this. I'm not really sure what this is about. If you have any theories about why that might be, or if you know any more information about that, please let me know. I'd love to dig into that a little bit more. So these are the known temples dedicated to Hades / Pluto. As you can see, there's not very many, and there's not a lot of information about them. We do have some information about sacrificing to Hades. So typically, if you're sacrificing to an underworld deity, you're going to sacrifice things that are dark in color. So animals that have black fur, pigs were usually dedicated to chthonic deities. In addition to that, there's some indication that maybe dates or figs would have been an appropriate sacrifice to Hades. And in the Odyssey, Odysseus sacrifices a black ram, but specifically the blood of the ram is what gets dedicated to the soul of Tiresias. So blood offerings were a way to give reverence to the dead and to Hades himself. Now, on a practical note, I am not endorsing animal sacrifice. I don't think that you should be killing anything in your religious practices. That's just my opinion. If you wanted to make a sacrifice to this god, if you do any deity work and you're looking for inspiration, I would say red wine as a substitution for blood would work really well. Or you can prepare like a pork dinner or something. You could probably do that instead of actually slaughtering a pig. I do not recommend that whatsoever. Now, if anyone is watching this video and you do deity work and you work with Hades and or Pluto, I would love to know what you do. So if there's anything that you sacrifice to the god that is not one of the things that I already mentioned, I would love to hear about that. So let me know in the comments down below. I'm always very excited to get those kind of comments and learn about your practices and what you do. So again, I would appreciate that if you're willing to share. And the last thing I'll say about sacrificing to Hades is that typically when people sacrifice to Hades, they would turn their faces away, to look in the other direction so as to not see the god or see anything related to death in the underworld.